November 23, 1986. The freezing rain was turning the streets of downtown Minneapolis into treacherous sheets of ice as the city prepared for its harshest winter in decades. Outside the gleaming glass entrance of First National Bank on Nicollet Mall, 28-year-old Prince Rogers Nelson sat in his purple Rolls-Royce, waiting for his financial advisor to complete what should have been a routine meeting about his investment portfolio. The global superstar, fresh off the massive success of Purple Rain and worth an estimated $45 million, was bundled in a custom cashmere coat, trying to stay warm while his driver kept the engine running. When a small figure emerged from behind a nearby dumpster, a 12-year-old boy with holes in his sneakers and a threadbare jacket that offered no protection against the bitter Minnesota cold, Prince's first instinct was to look away, just another unfortunate reality of urban life that most wealthy people preferred to ignore. But when the trembling child approached his car window and held up a cardboard sign that simply read "Need $5 for food, God bless," Prince had no idea he was about to make a split-second decision that would not only transform this homeless boy's entire existence, but create one of the most extraordinary rags-to-riches stories in American history, turning a desperate street kid into a multimillionaire entrepreneur whose success would eventually inspire legislation and change how the entire nation approaches youth homelessness. If you want to discover the moments when Prince's compassion created miracles that lasted lifetimes, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. What you're about to witness proves that sometimes a single act of genuine kindness can transform not just one life, but countless others. The economic climate of 1986 Minneapolis was particularly brutal for vulnerable residents. Reagan's policies had cut federal funding for social programs by nearly 40%, leaving homeless shelters overwhelmed. The approaching winter promised to be one of the deadliest on record for people living on the streets, with temperatures predicted to drop as low as -30 degrees for weeks. Prince had been grappling with his own complex relationship with wealth and social responsibility. Despite enormous commercial success, he had grown up in poverty and never forgot the fear that came with not knowing where your next meal would come from. His childhood home had been foreclosed when he was 14, leaving deep emotional scars. Now, as one of the world's highest-paid entertainers, Prince struggled with guilt about his fortune and felt his success meant nothing if he couldn't help people who reminded him of his younger self. That week, 31-year-old social worker Maria Santos had been documenting the growing crisis of youth homelessness for a report to convince legislators to increase funding. The city's youth shelters were operating at 180% capacity, turning away desperate children every night. Marcus Thompson's story had begun 3 months earlier when his mother Patricia died from untreated diabetes complications. At 29, she had been working 3 minimum-wage jobs but couldn't afford health insurance. When she collapsed, Marcus found himself completely alone, with no support system. The state's Child Protective Services was so overburdened that Marcus fell through the cracks immediately. He spent 2 weeks in a temporary foster placement more interested in the monthly stipend than his well-being, then ran away when his foster father became violent. For 2 months, Marcus had been surviving on the streets, sleeping in abandoned buildings, eating from dumpsters, and begging for enough money to buy occasional meals. On November 23rd morning, Marcus hadn't eaten in nearly 40 hours. The Salvation Army soup kitchen was closed for Thanksgiving preparation, and his usual panhandling spots had been unproductive. As temperature dropped and freezing rain began, Marcus faced a potentially life-threatening situation if he couldn't find food and warmth before nightfall. Prince's purple Rolls-Royce was impossible to miss, and Marcus recognized it as belonging to someone wealthy enough to potentially spare a few dollars. He had been panhandling for weeks, learning that approaching expensive cars was often more effective than trying to get attention from pedestrians. When Marcus approached the Rolls-Royce, his handmade cardboard sign clutched in numb fingers, he wasn't expecting anything more than the usual response. Maybe $1 or $2 if he was lucky, more likely a dismissive wave or an instruction to move along. The tinted windows made it impossible to see who was inside, and Marcus had no idea he was about to encounter someone whose life story bore remarkable similarities to his own desperate circumstances. Prince looked through his window at the small, shivering figure holding the cardboard sign, and something inside him shifted fundamentally. This wasn't just another homeless person asking for change. This was a child, barely a teenager, whose thin face and hollow eyes reminded Prince powerfully of his own reflection during the darkest periods of his youth. The boy's threadbare clothes, the way he hunched his shoulders against the cold, the careful lettering on his handmade sign, everything about the scene triggered memories that Prince had spent years trying to suppress. "Roll down the window," Prince told his driver quietly. "Sir, we should probably just," the driver began. "Roll down the window," Prince repeated, his voice firmer. When the window descended, Marcus found himself looking directly at one of the most famous faces in the world. For a moment, neither of them spoke, both shocked by the unexpected nature of their encounter. "What's your name, son?" Prince asked gently, his voice lacking any of the superiority or condescension that Marcus had come to expect from wealthy people. "Marcus," the boy replied, his voice barely audible over the sound of traffic and falling rain. "Marcus Thompson. Before we reveal what happened in this life-changing encounter, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where a small act of kindness had a much bigger impact than you expected? How did it change things? Share your experiences in the comments below." Prince studied Marcus's face carefully, seeing not just the immediate signs of hunger and exposure, but also intelligence, dignity, and a spark of determination that hadn't been extinguished despite his desperate circumstances. This wasn't a child who had given up. This was someone who was fighting to survive and maintain hope in the face of seemingly impossible odds. "How long have you been out here?" Prince asked. "About 2 months," Marcus answered honestly, sensing something different about this conversation compared to his usual interactions with potential donors. Prince felt his heart break as he processed what this child had been enduring. 2 months on the streets in Minneapolis as winter approached was essentially a death sentence for someone so young and vulnerable. The fact that Marcus had survived this long demonstrated both incredible resourcefulness and extraordinary luck. "Get in the car," Prince said suddenly, opening the door before Marcus could respond. I don't want any trouble," Marcus stammered, backing away slightly. His experience with adults had taught him to be wary of anyone offering help that seemed too good to be true. "You're not in trouble," Prince said firmly but kindly. "You're cold, you're hungry, and it's about to get a lot colder. I'm going to help you, but first I need you to trust me enough to get out of this freezing rain." Marcus hesitated for several long moments, weighing his limited options. The approaching winter weather meant that staying on the streets was becoming increasingly dangerous, but getting into a stranger's car, even a famous stranger, carried its own risks. Finally, the combination of Prince's gentle manner and his own desperate circumstances convinced Marcus to accept the unexpected offer. The warmth inside the Rolls-Royce was overwhelming after weeks of constant cold, and Marcus couldn't suppress a small gasp of relief as heated air began restoring feeling to his numb extremities. Prince handed him a wool blanket from the back seat and instructed the driver to head to the nearest restaurant. "When's the last time you had a real meal?" Prince asked as they drove through downtown Minneapolis. "I had some French fries yesterday," Marcus replied, then added quietly, "I think it was yesterday." Sometimes the days kind of run together. Prince closed his eyes for a moment, remembering his own childhood experiences with food insecurity and the way hunger could make time feel distorted and unreal. He made a mental calculation of what it would mean for a growing child to subsist on such inadequate nutrition for months. 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a quiet booth at Perkins' restaurant, where Prince had arranged privacy. Marcus ate slowly, pancakes, eggs, bacon, orange juice, while Prince asked gentle questions about his situation. The story that emerged was heartbreaking but inspiring. Marcus told Prince about his mother's death, brief traumatic foster care, his decision to run away, and daily struggle to survive while avoiding dangerous adults and authorities. But what impressed Prince wasn't just the tragedy, It was Marcus's intelligence, clear moral compass, and determination to survive without compromising his values. "What do you want to do with your life?" Prince asked. "I want to help other kids like me," Marcus answered without hesitation. "Kids who don't have anywhere to go, who fall through the cracks. I want to make sure they don't have to go through what I've been going through." The answer revealed everything Prince needed to know about Marcus's character and potential. This wasn't a child defeated by circumstances. This was someone who had learned from suffering and wanted to prevent others from experiencing similar pain. Now I want to ask you something that might change how you think about opportunity and potential. When have you encountered someone whose circumstances made them seem powerless, but whose character suggested they could accomplish extraordinary things if given the right chance? The most remarkable part of this story is about to unfold. Prince made a decision that would alter both their lives. Instead of providing temporary assistance, Prince decided to make a long-term investment in Marcus's potential. "Marcus, I'm going to give you a choice," Prince said. "I can give you money and help connect you with social services. Or you can come work for me, not as charity, but as a real job with real responsibilities. I'll provide housing, food, education, and salary. In return, you'll help me figure out how to use my resources to help other kids in your situation. You'll be my advisor on youth homelessness." The offer was unprecedented. Prince was proposing to take responsibility for a homeless child he had met hours earlier, while Marcus was being asked to trust his future to someone he knew only through media. "Why would you do this?" Marcus asked. "Because I've been where you are," Prince replied honestly. "Maybe not exactly the same circumstances, but I know what it feels like to be young and scared. I know what it's like to have talent that nobody recognizes because they're focused on your problems instead of your possibilities." Marcus considered carefully. He had learned to be suspicious of adults making grand promises, but something about Prince's manner convinced him this was genuine. The conversation continued for 2 hours as Prince outlined his vision for what would become the Purple Foundation. Marcus would be both beneficiary and key advisor in developing comprehensive approaches to youth homelessness that combined emergency assistance with long-term support for education and job training. By the time they left Perkins' restaurant, Marcus had agreed to Prince's proposal, and both of them understood they were beginning something unprecedented in both their lives. Prince arranged for immediate temporary housing at an extended-stay hotel while longer-term arrangements were finalized, and Marcus began what would become a remarkable transformation from homeless child to successful entrepreneur and advocate. The initial phase focused on Marcus's education and stabilization. Prince hired tutors to help Marcus catch up on missed schooling, arranged comprehensive medical care, and gradually introduced him to addressing youth homelessness systematically. But Prince treated Marcus as a genuine partner rather than charity case, valuing his insights in shaping how resources were allocated. Within 6 months, Marcus had caught up academically and enrolled in private high school where he excelled. The Purple Foundation officially launched in 1987 with Marcus as its youngest board member. The foundation's approach was revolutionary because it was designed by someone who had actually experienced homelessness. Marcus's insights led to innovations like 24-hour access centers providing not just shelter but laundry, phones, and mail service. His emphasis on dignity resulted in programs that empowered young people to participate in their recovery. By 1990, the Purple Foundation operated in 12 cities and had helped over 3,000 homeless youth. Marcus, now attending college on scholarship, had become a nationally recognized expert on youth homelessness. But Marcus's business acumen was most remarkable. At 18, he used his Purple Foundation salary to launch a staffing agency specializing in placing formerly homeless young adults in entry-level positions with advancement opportunities. By 1995, his agency had grown into a multi-million-dollar operation with offices in 8 states. The relationship between Prince and Marcus never lost its foundational character of mutual respect and genuine partnership. In 1998, Marcus testified before Congress about youth homelessness effectiveness, securing federal funding for programs following the Purple Foundation model. Today, Marcus Thompson is CEO of Thompson Enterprises, worth over $50 million. The Purple Foundation, operating in 35 cities, has helped over 25,000 young people transition from homelessness to productive lives. Prince remained actively involved until his death in 2016. Marcus spoke at his memorial. "Prince didn't just give me money or shelter, he gave me something more valuable, a vision of what I could become and tools to make that vision real. He taught me that helping others isn't about charity, it's about recognizing potential in every person and creating opportunities for that potential to flourish." The lesson from that cold November afternoon continues to ripple through countless lives. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do isn't to solve someone's immediate problem, but to invest in their long-term potential and treat them as partners in creating solutions that benefit everyone. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most inspiring transformation stories in modern history. If this story motivated you to look for ways to invest in someone else's potential or to see possibilities rather than just problems, please subscribe and share your own experiences of unexpected opportunities in the comments below.